Hey guys, Prowl 1701 here, and today we're going to talk about some other sci-fi things I like, besides Doctor Who, because, well, I'm not just a one-trick pony. I have other sci-fi related properties I like, besides Doctor Who, even though, of course, I'm a big Doctor Who fan, obviously. But I kind of want to talk about 15 other properties, just, briefly on each one, that I'm fond of to one degree or another. Now, the first one on the list I'll talk about is classic Doctor Who's kind of sister show, Blake 7. I have just started watching Blake 7 for the first time I've been slowly making my way through Series 1, really, over the past couple years. But since the box set came out, I've really kind of taken off on it. Now, I had very vague memories of it from seeing it on PBS back when I was little in the 80s. Very vague memories. I did a whole video talking about that quite some time ago. But I've watched all of the first season except for the finale. So the first, 12 episodes? And I'm really liking Blake 7. It has a very classic Who feel to it, with, of course, a lot of the same people who worked on classic Doctor Who behind the scenes, also working on Blake 7, created by Terry Nation, Chris Boucher as the script editor, Michael E. Bryant directing episodes, Dudley Simpson doing music, so you have a lot of the same people bleeding over. And then it has a really nice cast. I really like Blake and Avon a lot. I like their characterizations each, but I also like their chemistry together and how they both have very different opposing views and how that kind of clashes with each other, but at the same time, how they have good chemistry with each other and they have grown to trust each other. Now, I do feel like the other characters don't get fleshed out enough. I think Jenna, Gan, Callie, all need fleshing out more. I feel like there's just not enough. And Villa as well. I feel like they're not as developed as I'd like them to be. I kind of hope they get more development in Series 2. But I like what little bit I get of them, but just poor Gan really gets the short stick. I hope he gets more character development in Season 2. He seems like the one that I just don't know a lot about him, aside from the little chip thing in his head. I don't really know what makes him tick other than that. And, of course, I like Travis and Severlin a lot, too. Jacqueline Pierce is great in that role. She just has a presence. She does. This very regal presence where she just draws your eye. And then Steven is doing a really good job playing Travis as well. I'm enjoying them as well. And I even had a little Peter Miles cameo in her first episode, which I really liked. I love seeing Peter Miles. I've been watching it with the updated effects ever since wherever it was I picked up on with the updated effects, maybe episode 7 or so. Really liking the updated effects. So definitely hoping we get Series 2 of that. I do believe we will get Series 2 or Series B, whichever one it's really called. But looking forward to that. Very much enjoying Blake 7 because it feels a lot like Doctor Who, and I really enjoy that. Let's talk about some of the obvious ones like Star Trek. I do enjoy Star Trek, especially older Star Trek. I really love the original series. The original series is my favorite Star Trek, with the original effects, with the updated effects they did back in the early 2000s. Love the original series. It's a great vision of a better tomorrow, which I really enjoy. I think it was cast well. I think it had a lot of really good stories. Yes, it has a few duds in it as well. The original series isn't perfect. I mean, Spock's brain is definitely a thing. But it did have so many just phenomenally good stories. And even some of the middle of the run stories I still really enjoy. So even one that might just be average is still one I like. Like Plato's Stepchildren, I don't think it's anything to write home about, but I like it. Star Trek The Next Generation, I think you could argue is objectively the best one ever made. It's 7 seasons, mostly Star Trek goodness. Again, very good cast. Really good run. Some duds in there too, especially early in the first couple of seasons where it kind of took some time to get off the ground. That being said, the first 2 seasons of Next Generation still have some great episodes. Measure of a Man, I think the Drumhead might have been early as well. I forget exactly which season the Drumhead's from. But Measure of a Man I know is season 2. There's definitely some good episodes in those early seasons. And even the later seasons have some not so great episodes. Descent Part 1 and Descent Part 2 never did much for me. But there's definitely a lot of highlights. My personal favorite Next Generation episode being from Season 7, the episode called Parallels, which is a Worf-centric episode, oddly enough, but a very, very good one. Deep Space Nine, I really enjoyed. The first time they really tried to do serialized Star Trek, really, I'd say from the end of Season 2, perhaps, through Season 6, where it really becomes very serialized. You have the Dominion War. Avery Brooks is just fantastic as Cisco. Once again, you have a great cast of different characters and a good cast of actors. I enjoy when they bring Michael Dorn into the show. I really like the guy who plays Dukat in it as well. The guy who plays Dukat is so good. I love the fact they bring Gowron back too. The actor who plays Gowron, the Klingon Chancellor, is so good as Gowron. I've always loved Gowron. I didn't like how dirty they did Gowron in the end. And I just like that it had kind of a darker edge to it in a good way. And it just set itself apart from the other Star Trek shows. Voyager, I'm not as keen on. I feel like the cast isn't as strong. They're fine, but they're not as strong. I mean, I won't argue with Mrs. Columbo being in the show. Why not? It has ups and downs. It has episodes I don't care for. It has really good episodes. And then it has its middle-of-the-run episodes, which I still enjoy. But it was my least favorite of the 20th century Star Trek shows. I enjoyed Enterprise. I liked Enterprise, especially seasons 3 and 4. The first 2 seasons have its ups and downs. Scott Bakula is a great captain. I like Scott Bakula. And I think the rest of the cast are good. The guy who plays Trip is really good. And then seasons 3 and 4 are good. Plus, Enterprise has one of my favorite Star Trek stories of all time, the Animera Darkly 2-parter. It's one of my favorite pieces of Trek. And then I enjoyed most of the Trek movies. The first one is long. Very, very long. Wrath of Khan, of course, is great. Search for Spock is even better, despite what people say, even if it's not paced as well. I love Search for Spock. My favorite movie scene of all time is literally from Search for Spock. Voyage Home is my favorite Trek movie. I just love Star Trek The Voyage Home. It's my sense of humor. I love it. After having 2 dark Trek movies, it's nice to kind of have that family-friendly comedy movie. 5 is not that great, but has a few good moments in it. 6 is fantastic. 7 is very middle of the road with some problems, but some good stuff too. First Contact's great. Insurrection really is just an overgrown 2-parter from the series, but I enjoy Insurrection. The guy playing the villain nails it. He's one of the best parts of the movie. That, and I think the guy who played Baltar in the original Battlestar Galactica played the Admiral in it, and I like that guy. He also, of course, played one of the Klingons in Errand of Mercy and came back in several episodes of Deep Space Nine. And then Nemesis wasn't good. But the space battle at the end is also, but Nemesis wasn't good. And then that's kind of where Trek mostly died for me. I enjoyed the first Abrams movie. I actually do think the first Abrams movie was pretty good. I didn't care for the second and the third one that much. They're watchable. I mean, the second one, the first half of it was pretty nice, actually. And then the second half was just stupid. It turned into a Wrath of Khan remake. And then the third one, as for the new series, I have zero interest in Discovery. Zero interest. Lower Decks, nope, not for me. Prodigy, I'm obviously not the target base. I watched the first season of Picard, and it was 5 out of 10, middle of the road. Even if the plot's ripped off from Mass Effect, which we'll see later on this list. And then I watched clips from Season 3, which looked better, but a little too fan-baity, especially with the Enterprise D coming back, because I always hated the Enterprise D. Much preferred the E. But yeah, Star Trek, loved older Star Trek, don't care for newer Star Trek. Let's talk about the other one, which of course is Star Wars. Gotta be honest, Disney has killed Star Wars for me for the most part. I even sold my copies. I don't own any new Star Wars. I own none of new Star Wars, Disney Star Wars. I even sold my original DVDs and my prequel DVDs. They literally made me not even want to watch the original trilogy or prequels anymore. That's how bad it is. That being said, I did enjoy The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett episodes about The Mandalorian. The 2 episodes of Book of Boba Fett that had The Mandalorian in them, those were fine. And then I enjoyed all 3 seasons of The Mandalorian. And then Tales of the Jedi. I did like Tales of the Jedi a lot, especially the Dooku episodes. But really, all of the episodes except for the first one with Ahsoka as a child, I thought were really good. I haven't watched Andor. I need to. I have zero interest in the Acolyte. I've heard Skeleton Crew is actually not that bad, but I don't really have any interest in it. Most of Book of Boba Fett was not good. I feel like there's something I'm forgetting in there, but I don't really care. And then the sequel trilogy was just hot garbage, to be honest. Last Jedi was so awful. And then Rise of Skywalker just doesn't make any sense. It tries to keep you going so fast you don't have time to think about how stupid it is. So yeah, Star Wars is just kind of dead for me for the most part. I still like the games though. You know, I need to get Jedi Survivor at some point. I like Fallen Order, and I will always love the KOTOR games. Love KOTOR 1 and 2. Give me that remake of KOTOR, please. Next on the list is Babylon 5. Most of you know I'm a big Babylon 5 fan. It's the main show that rivals Doctor Who for me being fond of. Babylon 5 was serialized television before that was really the norm, running from, including the pilot, 93 to 98. Having a pilot movie, 5 seasons, which it was made to be 5 seasons, and then a few spin-off movies as well. It's really good. It's not perfect because the original seasons 4 and 5 had to be combined into one season because they thought they weren't going to get a 5th season. So the original seasons 4 and 5 kind of got stuck together in season 4, and I think that shows a little. And then the season 5 they ended up doing, because they ended up getting a 5th season, is probably the weakest of the 5 seasons. While still being good, it really feels like an extended epilogue in a way. But it's cast well. It is written very well. It has great dialogue. It has some great guest cast with Walter Koenig showing up as Bester. And I'll be honest, when I think of Walter Koenig, I think of him as Bester before I do Chekhov, because he's just so good as Bester. And it had such a good cast. Andreas Katsoulis and Peter Jurassic, and the chemistry they had together on screen is lightning in a bottle. Lightning in a bottle. If they ever remake Babylon 5, they would have a hard time capturing that. I mean, both actors, Andreas and Peter, are great just in their own rights playing their characters. This is the show that it will teach you that I feel like they've never got the credit they deserved as actors. Both of them, phenomenal actors. And they're very good even individually. But you put them together in a scene, especially considering as their characters are very antagonistic toward each other. Their races don't like each other. Because Jakar is a Narn and Londo is a Centauri. And the chemistry they have together on screen runs such a gauntlet of emotions. They're phenomenal. They're two of my favorite characters. I always find it interesting that in a show like Babylon 5, some of my favorite characters are the non-human characters. I mean, I like Sheridan. I absolutely love Sinclair. I love Garibaldi. But my favorite characters are probably Jakar, who's a Narn, Londo, who is a Centauri, Kosh, who is one of the mysterious Vorlons, and Zathras, who is Zathras, which is not to be confused with Zathras. Remember, I didn't say Zathras, I said Zathras. You are seeing. I love Zathras and Zathras. But I love Babylon 5. The effects, of course, look a little dated. But that was really the first TV show, especially Sci-Fi, to do all of its special effects for, like, its exterior shots with CGI. It looked really good for the time. A little dated now. I'd love to see them do updated effects, but there's no way they put the money into that. But I still think the effects hold up really well. It's such a good show. It has a lot of heart and tells a really good story. Let's see. Next on the list is Robotech. I really like Robotech. Robotech was probably the first anime I remember seeing even before Dragon Ball Z came out. Not a big Dragon Ball Z fan. But I love Robotech, which was kind of... basically, there's 3 parts of Robotech. Macross Saga, Masters, and New Generation, which is a hodgepodge of 3 different animes from Japan. That's a whole video in itself. My favorite part is the first part, Macross Saga, which is the longest part at 36 episodes. And they fly these cool F-14s called Veritechs. And they transform into robots while you're piloting them. And then they have a kind of Gurwalk mode, Guardian mode, which is the middle one. Which is pretty cool. So you're flying an F-14 that turns into a robot. And you're fighting an alien war. It's a really good sci-fi futuristic show with a really good cast. It's certainly not perfect. It's a little dated in some ways. Like, one of the main characters is a singer, and I'm pretty sure she only sings like 3 songs. It's always like the same 3 songs, and that gets a little annoying. And of course, it has this kind of love triangle thing going on. It's really good. It's not perfect, but it also was a lot more adult than cartoons for 1985 when it came out. Like, if a character died in it, they died. Like, I can think of at least 2 main characters that get killed partway through the show, and they're just gone. Like, I know one of them has a flashback episode, you see him, but when they're gone, they're gone. And for a cartoon in the mid-'80s, that was pretty impressive, I think. Next is the Twilight Zone, the original Rod Serling Twilight Zone. I love the original Twilight Zone. I actually have that on my wish list. The Blu-ray of that, I want the Blu-ray of that so bad. That's on the Amazon wish list. Check that out. I love the original Twilight Zone. One of the things I like is, one, most of the episodes tell a very interesting story. And the fact that so many of the episodes are relevant still today. Still relevant. And the stories and messages they tell are still relevant. It was a really good way of doing satire to make a point. And I like older television like that could do. The original Star Trek could do that really well. It's also, I think, one of the reasons why I'm a big Burgess Meredith fan. Because I'm not really into the Rocky movies. And while I liked the old Adam West Batman show as a kid, it's not something I go back to now. But I absolutely adore Burgess Meredith. And I think it's because not only is he in my favorite Twilight Zone episode of all time, he's also in my second favorite Twilight Zone episode of all time, which my second favorite is Time Enough at Last, which of course is one of the most famous episodes, where he likes reading the books. But my favorite episode is also called The Obsolete Man, which is a phenomenal piece of television. Not just for the Twilight Zone, it's one of the best pieces of television I've ever seen. And a lot of that is down to the performances. Mainly him and his character, Mr. Wordsworth, and then the guy who is basically sentencing him. And I can't remember the actor's name who plays him, but he's really good in this. It's really just those two selling you on the story that takes place in a future in a very Orwellian society. And it's the performances of those two that really sell it. And it's a phenomenal story with some phenomenal acting and directing, and is still just as relevant today, if not more so, than it was when it originally aired. It holds up so well, like so many episodes of The Twilight Zone do. Next on the list is delving into video games. Mega Man. I love Mega Man, which of course is kind of like RoboCop in a way, which I also like RoboCop, for the record. The first 2 RoboCops. The second RoboCop was actually directed by, Irvin Kershner, the same guy who directed Empire Strikes Back. But Mega Man is actually my favorite video game franchise of all time. I love Mega Man. Matter of fact, I've been on a Mega Man kick the past few days. I have beaten... I went through and beat Mega Man 2, Mega Man 3, Mega Man 5, and Mega Man 6, and Mega Man X. I just love the old school Mega Man platformers. Now, I'm not as into the Zero series or the ZX series. I have beaten the first ZX game. And I'm not into Battle Network or Star Force or the Pokemon style games. I love the original Mega Man. I love the X games. And I've also beaten the first Legends game because I had the 64 port of it and found it very enjoyable. But I just like them. I don't know. I go into the zone when I'm gaming on old school Mega Man. Zone. I'm just in the zone. It's my happy place. It's my nostalgia. Especially the ones I played when I was little. Like, my favorite Mega Mans, if I had to tell you the best ones in my opinion, would be Mega Man 2, Mega Man 3, Mega Man 4, Mega Man X, Mega Man X2, and Mega Man X4. Those are my top 6. Although I still enjoy the original Mega Man a lot, too. And Mega Man X3 is still pretty good. 5, 6, 7 are pretty good, too. 9 and 10 are good. But 2, 3, 4, X, X2, and X4 are definitely the best ones in my opinion. I get lost in them when I play them. They're my happy place. They're my comfort gaming. Next on the list, sticking with video games, is the Metroid series, which is, I I often cite as my second favorite gaming series of all time. I don't know if that's still true. It's up there, though. I love Metroid. I started with the original Metroid in the 80s. I played the mess out of that game. And I hear people kind of whine about Metroid now, sometimes, these gamers on YouTube. Pansies. Anytime I hear somebody rank the original Metroid low or they complain about how hard it is, I just know they suck at video games. It could use a couple quality of life improvements, like I wish you could crouch and shoot, but it holds up really well. People are like, but it doesn't have a map. Yes, it did. It had a map. You know what the map was? We drew it. I remember my uncle and one of my cousins who was a little older than me, they would draw the maps. They would make their own maps. That's the hard part of the point of Metroid, is it makes you think. It doesn't hand you the game. It makes you figure it out. I love the original Metroid. It's still my second favorite Metroid of all time, actually. I will take the original Metroid over Zero Mission any day. I like Zero Mission, which is the remake. Zero Mission's a great game. Is it as good as the original Metroid? No. No. Although that Kraid fight is a lot harder in Zero Mission, to be fair. That Kraid fight in Zero Mission. Then Super Metroid, of course, is my favorite Metroid game. One of my favorite video games of all time. It's top 10 greatest video game ever made. Definitely up in the top 10. I love that game. I love the atmosphere. I love the flow. I love the sprites, the graphics, the music, just everything about that game is perfect. It's just perfect. I love Super Metroid so much. Metroid Fusion is good. The Prime games I enjoyed at the time. I have a hard time going back to them for some reason. I played through most of Prime about 3 years ago, and I got all the way to the end, like right when you're battling the Fission Metroids before you fight Metroid Prime. And I just put it down and didn't go back to it. I think it's because I used to know a really easy way to do that bit with the Fission Metroids right at the end, the kind of last little gauntlet you have to go through. I knew a quick shortcut way to get through them, and I couldn't remember it. And I think I was so angry I couldn't remember it, I just quit. I have the remastered version on the Switch, and I need to play it. I haven't actually played it. But the first one I liked a lot. The second one was okay. I didn't like how you had to fight some of the battles in the ball form, like that Spider Guardian. Good God. And then the third one I only beat once. I didn't get into the third one because you had to use the motion controls, and I hate motion controls. I have no hand-eye coordination. I hate them. I beat the third one just so I could say I beat the third one, and then I was done with it. And then I tried playing the demo. I'm not a big fan of Return of Samus. I played the remake of it, Samus Returns, briefly. Didn't care for it. And then I played the demo for Dread, but I didn't really like it either because I don't like the fact you're having to run and hide and do stealth stuff. That's just not Metroid for me. It doesn't feel like Metroid. Plus, I hate that little rebound. I don't feel like I'm playing Metroid when I'm playing them. I'll put it that way. But the older Metroid games, oh yeah, sign me up. The original and Super Metroid all day long. Staying with that, another kind of similar property, Halo. I do enjoy the Halo games a lot, especially the mainline first-person shooter Halo games. I think they're absolutely gorgeous. I think there's a lot of good world building there, good voice acting. The music score, some of the best music in gaming comes from Halo. And then it's just fun gameplay. It's interesting to me how well Halo has aged. Halo really is the first modern shooter. Like, perfect example is GoldenEye. I love GoldenEye. GoldenEye I love because of the memories I have of GoldenEye. And Perfect Dark, actually. Perfect Dark was my favorite first-person shooter all the way until Left 4 Dead came out. So that was about a 9-year run. But GoldenEye and Perfect Dark have one major flaw that we have to acknowledge. They have aged badly. They're hard to go back and play. As much as I love Perfect Dark, and again, my favorite first-person shooter of all time for 9 years, I play it on the Xbox occasionally. I only play about the first 4 or 5 levels. I have never beaten the Xbox version of it. I just get bored with it partway through. I never finish. GoldenEye is the same way. I love it for what it was and my memories of it. But actually trying to play it in 2024, 2025 is hard for both of those games. Whereas Halo, the gameplay holds up. Because even if you're playing the anniversary versions of those games, they're running on the same engine. It's just the graphics that are different. It's still the same gameplay. Because you can switch between the graphics on the fly for Halo 1 and Halo 2. It's, I think, the first modern one where they really overhauled the mechanics. And that's probably about as far as you can go back on a first-person shooter and still comfortably play it today. I can still play Halo 1. It has annoyances, like the repetitive areas where I get turned around. Am I coming or going? Halo 2 is one of my favorite Halo games. Halo 3 holds up. Halo 4 is... I actually enjoy Halo 4. Halo 5 kind of sucks. Reach is one of my favorite Halo games. And Infinite is definitely one of my favorite Halo games. Those are my three favorites. 2, Reach, and Infinite. But 2 holds up. 1 holds up. And it's a fun story, and it's a great way to play with friends. I love co-oping through Halo. My friend Stephanie and I, probably about a year ago now, I think like January, February, March, we played through all the Halo games. We only got about halfway through 5, because 5 sucks. And Stephanie plays on Legendary. Didn't realize that when we were starting. She likes to play on Legendary. Prowl likes to play on Normal. You know. I'm not a masochist or anything. I mean, we did beat Halo 2 on Heroic, but other than that, Legendary. Although, I think she piggybacked me. I think she was carrying me on some of those games, piggybacking me. I think I held my own on Infinite. It was her first time going through Infinite. But they're really fun to co-op, to play with someone. Now, continuing with gaming, we're going to talk about Mass Effect. I think of the Mass Effect trilogy as like the video game version of Star Wars. It tells such a good story. Now, I didn't like Andromeda. I'll be the first to say. I've never even gotten that far into Andromeda. I've tried to pick up Andromeda about 3 times. I just don't get into Andromeda. But the Mass Effect trilogy is so much fun. It tells such a good story. I love the cast of characters. They're all voiced well. They're written well. They have good dialogue. I love the just galactic-wide, galaxy-wide danger that is being faced with the Reapers. I like Shepard as a character. I played through the game as male Shepard. I've played through the game several times as female Shepard, taking different choices along the way. And I just love how the choices you make can drastically alter things in the game. I love seeing my side characters and how they're affected by my choices. Like, I actually found out you can save Morden. I actually managed to save Morden. I had to be a complete asshat in all 3 games with my character, but I managed to save Morden, and I love Morden. Morden's awesome. You know, Garrus is so awesome. Miranda is awesome. Ashley is awesome. Grunt is awesome. I forget his name. The other Krogan you're with, he's awesome. Rex. I like Rex a lot. And I've been on Rex's good side. I've been on Rex's bad side. I've even had to kill Rex before. I just love the variety there. I love the actual playing style. Even the first game. I love playing in the first game. I do like the Legendary Edition better. The Legendary Edition does make a lot of changes to the first game to streamline it. But all 3 games are fun. I really want the next Mass Effect game to just be more of that. Like, don't reinvent the wheel. Because Andromeda just... as much as I love the Mass Effect trilogy, I did not like Andromeda. I get so bored trying to get into Andromeda. I don't know why. I've tried 3 times, and all 3 times I end up, well, I'll get back to that, and then, no, I don't. I don't like it. Whereas the Mass Effect trilogy is 3 of the best games I've ever played. I want more of that for the next Mass Effect game. It just tells such a good story. I don't know how they're going to compete with that. Next on the list is a little-known game from 2010 that a review once called the best game of 2010 that nobody played because they didn't market it, and it was called Singularity. I love Singularity. It's basically set in 2010. You're a military soldier on this island that was used by the Soviet Union back in the day, and you end up getting caught in this event that sends you back to 1955, which sets in place a series of events that cause catastrophes to happen. And you're jumping back and forth between 1955 and 2010. And you equip... It's a first-person shooter, and you also have this thing called the TMD, which is the time manipulation device, which lets you manipulate time and do things, rewind things, age things, make things pristine again. It's used to really good effect, like when you have to raise a sunk ship out of the ocean, but it's only temporary. It's a really fun game, really nice cast, that I really wish would have gotten a sequel. It was so much fun. Had a great ending. Easily one of my favorite games that nobody's ever played. It's just one of those games a lot of people don't know about. It just wasn't marketed well. It wasn't marketed well, unfortunately. But it's a lot of fun, and I love the sci-fi elements of it. If you've never heard of it, check it out. Singularity. Really good. Came out back on the Xbox 360. Really good game. I also want to talk about continuing with video games for now. Star Fox. I love the Star Fox games, especially the first two. I love the original Star Fox on the Super Nintendo with that FX chip. That's still my favorite Star Fox game of all time. I love the original. It had great music. It looked great for a Super Nintendo console game. It was a lot of fun. It had 3 different difficulty paths, so you could find the one that was right for you. It had great secrets. It had a good soundtrack. Star Fox 64 is probably objectively the best one. Easily my second favorite. It's really close with those two. It looked gorgeous for its time. It still looks good, but it looked gorgeous for its time. It was huge. Some of the voice work was a little annoying, especially Slippy. The shortcuts were nice. Again, the difficulty level there was nice. The difficulty could swap depending on the routes you took. There were different difficulty routes to take with a lot of fun and inventive boards. Very few boards were uninteresting to me, although one of them was definitely heavily influenced by Independence Day, let's be honest. But a really fun game. I didn't care for Star Fox Adventures. I thought it was a neat idea, but it wasn't a game I really cared for. Star Fox Assault, I think it was, the 4th one, was alright. I actually enjoy it. It's not A tier, or even S tier, of course. But it's still a fun game. C tier maybe, but I find it enjoyable. 0 would have been good if they didn't make you play with the crappy motion controls. The motion controls kill that game. The way you had to use the Wii pad, but that's stupid. If you had given it a traditional control scheme, it would have been a fun game. But the first 2, you can't beat those first 2. They're just phenomenally good sci-fi games. Switching back to movies, let's talk about the Terminator franchise. Terminator 1 and Terminator 2 are 2 of the best movies of all time. Terminator 2 is not only the greatest action movie of all time, it is also the greatest sequel of all time. Yes, it's better than Empire Strikes Back. I love Terminator 2. One of those rare times when a sequel beats out its predecessor, which was still good. I love the first Terminator. I love that movie. It's so good. It has this kind of tech-noir style to it. And it's got Lance in it. I like anything that's got Lance in it. And the guy playing the other cop, the guy who played Captain Terrell in Wrath of Khan, I like him a lot too. He was also in an episode of Babylon 5. I really like him. I love when they show up and stuff. And of course, I'm a big Michael Biehn fan. He's great in that movie as Kyle Reese. Linda Hamilton nails it as Sarah Connor. Love Sarah Connor. And then, of course, Arnold is just fantastic in both movies. I absolutely love the first Terminator. I love the second one, though. The second one is one of the greatest movies of all time. Just everything about it. The look, the feel, the music. I have some of the incidental music from that movie on my iTunes that I listen to. I get so amped listening to that. Oh, that music that plays when he's shooting down with the Gatling gun, the minigun from the window, but he doesn't actually kill anybody. He's just scaring them back. And then the music that plays when he's walking down that hallway getting shot up and he just shoots him in the legs because he promised not to kill him. I love that. And he's just rocking back and the bullets aren't stopping. I love that movie so much. And plus, we got to give props to Robert Patrick as the T-1000. He is so good as the T-1000 in that movie. I don't know what it is. You wouldn't think somebody that's like... He's just as intimidating as Arnold, and he's so much smaller than Arnold, but he's so intimidating. Just that gaze he has, that stare. He just... You're never going to get a T-1000 as good as Robert Patrick. He's so good at it. But of course, I love what they did with Sarah Connor in it. She's just such a badass in that movie. And Edward Furlong is great as John Connor. It's such a good movie. I love that. Now, Terminator 3 is watchable. I like it. It's enjoyable. And I don't just mean that it's watchable. It's an enjoyable movie. Kind of feels like a parody of 2 at times, but I still enjoy it. I like Arnold in it. I like Kristana Loken as the TX. I do not like Nick Stoltz as John Connor, though. I just don't buy it. That's the worst part of the movie for me, is I just don't buy him as John Connor. I think Clara Danes is great in it, though. It certainly has its moments, and it's not a bad movie. Salvation is enjoyable. I like the fact they tried to do something different with the Terminator franchise and kind of show us the early stages of the war, or kind of the mid stages of the war. I don't really like Christian Bale. Excuse me. I don't really like Christian Bale as John Connor, but then again, Anton Yelchin I don't really buy him as... The casting for this movie is not good. And just Sam Worthington, I just don't like in general. I don't really care for the casting of the movie, other than having Michael Ironside in it, which is great. I don't care for the casting. But the actual idea of the movie and the way it's filmed looks really nice. I didn't really care for Genesis, which has Matt Smith in it. Nice Doctor Who connection. Matt Smith is in Terminator Genesis. Not a big fan of Terminator Genesis. It has its moments. Jai Courtney is just so miscast as Kyle Reese, though. He's a terrible Kyle Reese. I don't really like him as an actor much in general. But he's just not a good Kyle Reese. I can't get over that. And then Dark Fate I've never watched. I just kind of got put off by the Terminator franchise at that point. But nothing can take away from the fact that the first two are just masterpieces and phenomenal films. Next on the list is the Alien movies, which, much like the Terminator movies, I think we all just need to accept that there's two and then that's it. Although I still need to see Romulus. I hear Romulus is pretty good. But the first two Aliens movies are great. And they're very different. You know, the first one is very much a horror movie in space. It's fantastic. I love the claustrophobic nature of it. And it's very atmospheric. There's a lot of tension and suspense in it. It is very much a slow burn, which you don't see as much now. And it's cast really well. The guy playing the captain is great. Of course, Sigourney Weaver is great. You got John Hurt in it. The guy who gets killed first by it, forget his name. Not John Hurt, but the guy who gets actually killed by the alien first. The kind of blue-collar looking guy. He's really good. I like him. I've seen him in other stuff. I like him. But all of the guest cast. I mean, you have Ian Holm as Ash, which is really good. It's really, really well cast. I mean, all of the side characters do a really good job with it. And it's nice that you have such a good movie with such a small cast. And then you have Aliens, which is, of course, more an 80s action movie, which is great. I mean, even your characters that aren't there a while get some nice development. Like, I'm a big fan of Apone and Drake. Maybe that's because I had their toys from the Kenner line. But I like Drake and Apone a lot, even though they're not in the movie much. Of course, Michael Biehn is back, and I like Michael a lot. As I mentioned before, he's great as Hicks. It's a really good, fun movie. And Lance is in this one as well. Lance Henriksen, and I really like Lance a lot. He's really good in Pumpkinhead as well. So I really liked Aliens, but then it kind of fell off. I don't really care for Aliens 3, which has Paul McGann in it, by the way. I just learned that recently. I just learned Paul McGann's in Alien 3, and my first response is, where? Because I don't know if I've watched Aliens 3 probably since right around when the TV movie came out. It's probably the late 90s the last time I watched Alien 3, because I hate Alien 3. I wouldn't mind Alien 3 as much if it didn't just completely screw over the end of Aliens, with Hicks dying, Newt dying, Bishop practically dying and then dying, with Ripley dying. Every single person from 2 is dead by the end of 3. So yeah, I have an intense hatred for 3. Although if you didn't just do stupid with the beginning of it and you actually had the rest of the people from 2 surviving into 3 wouldn't be that bad. I did like the fact 3 had a different type of alien, with the alien coming out of a dog or an ox, depending on which version of it you watched. That was a neat idea and inspired, I think. I like how it's grabbing people out of the shadows as they're going. But apparently Paul McGann is in that movie. Don't ask me who he is. I don't know, but apparently he's in there. Resurrection I actually enjoyed until the end with the hybrid. The whole thing with the hybrid is stupid. But before that, I was having a good time with it. It's great to have Sigourney Weaver back. It's got one actor, I don't know his name, but I always like him and stuff. He's also in, like, The Bone Collector. He's in so much stuff. He's in an episode of Star Trek Voyager. He's the one that's got the alien in and that's just slowly taking its time to come out. I like him. I don't know his name, but he's really good in it. Brad Dourif is in it. Of course, I like Brad Dourif, Chucky himself. He's also in the 1984 Dune. Brad Dourif is in it. The guy who plays Top Dollar in The Crow is also in it as well for a little bit. I like him. It's got a really nice cast of characters. Winona Ryder's in it. It's an enjoyable movie up to the end. Prometheus sucked. Prometheus just sucked. Well, it had some ideas. No, it sucked. It sucked. Ridley Scott needs to retire. It sucked. I didn't even watch Alien Covenant. Prometheus was so bad. I read the synopsis for Alien Covenant and said, this is freaking stupid. So, Ridley Scott, stay away from the Aliens franchise at this point. You did good with the first one. Let it go. Give it some fresh blood. And I haven't seen Romulus, though. I've heard Romulus is the best one since the second one. As for the Aliens versus Predator movies, yeah, they're ass. They're complete ass. And then the last one we're going to talk about, and this is probably one you've never heard of, is a video game from the original Nintendo called The Guardian Legend, which is a nice sci-fi game and my favorite video game of all time. I love The Guardian Legend. It's kind of a cross between a top-down Zelda and, like, Galaga. But it's really creative. It's a lot of fun. It definitely has Metroid aspects to it, where you're having to get keys to get to new areas. And it has a really good soundtrack. I love the soundtrack. It has a really crappy password system. But other than the password system, it's a lot of fun. You basically are on this spacefaring ship planet habitat area that's been invaded, and you have to self-destruct it to destroy all the invading aliens before it reaches Earth, because it's kind of on its way to Earth. And the character you play as can transform into kind of a miniature ship for the Galaga-like sections. The rest of that, you're running around in the overworld. And then these sub-areas of the overworld all have very different kind of biospheres with different music. Such a good soundtrack. It's a really fun game. Like I said, I think I'd call it my favorite game of all time. I have a few of them that vie for that title, but it's a lot of fun. If you've never heard of it, you should look it up. It's a lot of fun. So that's 15 other sci-fi franchises besides Doctor Who that I am really fond of. I want to know if you're familiar with any of these and what you think of them, or some other ones I didn't talk about that you would like to discuss. Comment down below and tell me some of your other favorite sci-fi franchises and things besides Doctor Who. Don't forget to click the like button and the subscribe button. I also have a Patreon if you'd like to support me on that. All sorts of little perks there for that. I have a link to my Amazon wishlist down there, a link to my Amazon UK wishlist down there for stuff I would like, and definitely do reviews of. My P.O. box is down there if there's anything you'd like to send me to look at and review. I want to give a shout out to some of my top tier patrons, Colin Coney, Sam Venning, Unknown289, and Finn Perkins. I appreciate their support, as I do the support of all of my patrons. Most importantly, thank you for watching.